If you're just getting started with n8n, or even if you've been using it for a while, these are 10 things I wish someone told me earlier. They would save me hours of trials and errors, broken flows, and head-scratching moments. So let's skip the guesswork. Here are 10 tips to help you build much faster, cleaner, and more confidently with n8n. We're gonna start with some useful basics and build up towards cool things. Do you know how to set up your workflow to run on some specific day? For example, only on Mondays? Or recall a binary file in the middle of the flow? This one alone saved me hours when I figured out how to do it. Let's start with this tip, and I don't even count it towards those 10. Did you know that you can embed an image in your n8n flow? I often start designing a new workflow in a tool like FigJam, where I can quickly build a diagram or a flow chart of what this workflow is going to look like. But then I want to bring it into my n8n, where I am going to slowly build it component by component, and I can easily reference my diagram. So there is a way to do that. And you just need to upload your image somewhere in the server. And then, since Nodes using Markdown, and Markdown actually allows you to embed images, you can use this expression and just update your URL with the URL of your image, and then hashtag full width if you want your width of your image to be controlled by the width of your node. Here you go. Let's continue with the first official tip. It's pretty basic, but it's an important one. When I used make.com, I wished that it would have functionality like this. In n8n, you can just pin this output, and now every time you run your workflow, it's gonna save it and keep it the same. But then there is a next level to this tip. You can edit your output, and this is time saver. Like, let's say we want to filter some database and find someone with role admin. But in the data set that we have, well, there's only staff manager and that's it. So what do? We either have to go and create this role in CRM to make sure that we have the right type of role for our dummy data that we are testing, or we can just go and update role here. And now, when we are running this workflow, it's going to use this admin role. This is super powerful, and you can do this not just to regular nodes. You can also do this to your triggers. So for example, here, you can create your own data. Let's say it's name. And now this trigger has data within it. When you have a flow that is triggered by execution of another flow, having this data saves you tons of time because you don't have to go and execute that flow in order to get data into this flow. Another thing that surprisingly few people know is that you can connect the same flow to multiple triggers. For example, this flow can be triggered manually, but it also can be triggered by schedule. And whatever triggers runs, it's going to run the whole flow. This is very common when you run a flow when you either create a file or update a file. You can just create triggers for both of these events and have them run the same flow. Tip number 3. You can activate or deactivate nodes whenever you need. It comes pretty handy if you just loaded one of your old workflows, or maybe one that you downloaded from internet, like from my YouTube channel, and you're trying to figure out when something is not working or when you're not sure what this node is even for. You can simply deactivate it and try to run without it. Well, the size of this scraped HTML is beyond the talking window that our model has. That's why I added this markdown to reduce the size of the data we're passing. Okay, we're half through the list. Make sure to stay around for webhooks and binary recall. Those two are definitely worth your time. This is a good one. Of course, you know that you can use schedule trigger to set up when to run your workflow. And usually you set up something like do it every day or once a week, but it actually gives way more granularity than that. For example, you can have it triggered on all workdays. But if even that is not enough for you, you can use custom CRON expressions. And n8n actually has a doc that explains how to use it. You can set it up to run even more frequent than a minute. Or you can build a pretty crazy expressions like run it at midnight on the 1st of January, April, July, and October. Okay, let's wait for the next July. I'm a big believer in keeping my workflows organized. And we just created this very specific trigger that runs on a specific time of the day. How do I make it clear for me in the future who opens this workflow and trying to figure out the details? Well, one option is to create a node using Shift-S hotkey. But in this specific case, I actually prefer another way to do this. You can go within settings of the node, can add any node you want here. Just don't forget to turn on this. And now that there is a node right there attached to the trigger that we have. It doesn't have to be a trigger. It works for any node you want. When I just started using n8n, I would often build a workflow, and then I will come up with an idea how to maybe optimize it. And I need to adjust and remove some of the nodes. So I'll just copy and paste these nodes somewhere here and start adjusting my flow, knowing that I have my backup version. Well, apparently you don't have to do this because your workflow has a history. And once I save, I can go back and see every previously saved variant of this workflow. And that's another important tip. n8n doesn't save files automatically. So make a habit of pressing Command S or Control S if you're on Windows from time to time. A very powerful feature that n8n offers is the ability to manipulate data through functions. You can split arrays, convert data from one type to another. You can extract specific type of data like URLs from text. But there is one specific function that I want to show you because it's hard to discover and it can save you tons of time. Often, what you can get from API request is a data that's structured like this. You have a list, you have an object within object. And as a result, it's hard to extract the right variables from this data. For example, if you want to get a list of usernames, you're going to have to use a bunch of split out and aggregation nodes just to rearrange this array. But there is a simpler way to do this. And that's what I want to show you. There is this function that allows you to take this messy set of data and extract a specific variable from it. Let's create another edit field node. Let's say we want names. By the way, another extra tip, just by clicking equal button, equal key on your keyboard, you can switch from static to expression. And here we will write JMESPath, which is just some JavaScript function. And first we provide it with a variable that we want to work with. And then we need to specify what we are trying to extract. Basically any array, and we want general information, and we want name, and we need to add parentheses here. And you can see as a result we got Bob, Bill, and Melinda, which is 3 names that we have kind of in the midst of all this data. And if you look at this helpful tip, you can find that it allows you to do pretty crazy things. For example, you can add additional conditions. We can filter this list to get names of people whose role is admin, who first login was before 2025. When you run your workflows in production, your biggest fear is that your flow will break and you wouldn't even know about it. Well, there is a way to avoid that. n8n has error trigger, and you just create a new workflow, you put error trigger there, and then you can add any action you want to happen when your flow breaks. So I like to send a Slack message to myself. I already have my account connected. I select my user, and in the message, I will just it provides you with a placeholder information. So I will just put error message. I will add URL of my workflow and probably the name of the workflow as well. So I know exactly what broke. And I'm going to call this workflow error handler video. And now what I can do is I can attach that workflow to the workflow that I'm running. So for example, if I want to run this workflow in production, I will go to settings, and next to error workflow, I will select my error handler video and I will save it. And so when this workflow breaks, it's going to trigger my error handler workflow, which is going to send me notification with all error data. And you can attach that one error handler workflow that we created to any number of workflows you want. I did a little bit of digging, and apparently webhooks create the most issues within n8n community. People constantly have questions about them, they run into the problems, and a lot of these things could be avoided if you just understand how webhooks work, because they are pretty powerful here. Of course, you use webhook when you want to send a signal from a web server to run n8n workflow. So I just created this webhook, and I have a Postman account that I use just to send HTTP requests on this webhook. Here is the first issue. n8n provides two webhook URL. One is a test URL and another one is production. We're going to use test URL first. Let's put it here. Then we need to listen for test event. So we send a request. Workflow was started. So when we go here, we actually received all this information. It worked well. But now, if we save this workflow and switch to active mode and try it again, the request webhook is not registered. And the reason for that is once we switch to active mode, we should be using production URL. Let's try it again. Workflow was started. So this confusion between production URLs and test URLs, that's the first type of the problem that people experience. The second one is a method. Let's say we have get method here, but on the server side, we are sending a post request. Well, this webhook is not registered for post request. Did you mean to make a get request? Actually, it's trying to help us to fix this problem. Of course, what you need to do is to make sure that your setup here within n8n and setup on the server, whatever you use to send your requests, are matching. So often your requests are coming from third-party software, so you might not be able to adjust it there, but you can adjust it here. But that's not all of it. Here in the settings, we have allow multiple HTTP methods. And what it does, it allows us to send multiple requests. By default, it's get and post, but it could be more than that. We need to click listen. And it's actually going to start workflow, which is great. It separates those requests. So it knows when it received a get request or when it received post request, and provides output either in get branch or post branch. So this way, you actually can have two different flows that are controlled by the same trigger, and you can decide which flow you want to trigger based on what type of request you are sending. Okay, and this is the last one. Working with binary files in n8n could be pretty confusing. In this case, we just got a form submission and we received this file. It's a binary file and we want to upload it to Google Drive, and everything works perfectly. But what often happens when you work with real business use cases, there are some additional steps that you need to take. And maybe it's as simple as just saving that file name somewhere in the middle of this flow. But look what's going to happen next. Now, if we upload the same file and submit it, it's not going to work because there is no binary file. The way binary files work with n8n, they kind of don't travel through a lot of nodes. It's better to have node that acts on a binary file right next to the node that receives binary file. And that's not always possible. So what I discovered is that you can create a function node that returns binary file from any other node. Here, I would just add this function in between. What's important is to call out the right node. We had our binary file with our unformed submission node. That's a node that we're going to be calling in. And let's try it again. We select our file. We press submit. In the output of our form, we received our binary file. Then, after we added some additional node, that binary file got lost, and now we only pass in JSON. But then, when we call out for the binary file from that specific form submission trigger. Now in the output, we have the same binary file again, and we can easily pass it to the next node. Were any of these tips new for you? If yes, please let me know in the comments. Also, if you have your trade secret that you are willing to share, I would be excited to hear from you. Thank you.